Welcome back. This is day number 9. And today we ask Reddit, what really scary horror story really happened in your life or to the people you know? Story 1. When I was around 14 years old, we had a neighbor 2 doors down that were foster parents. I always heard about them putting some of the troubled kids in cages as punishment and had them sleep on concrete. My friends and I would talk about it but never believed it to be true. Then one day, the FBI was everywhere, up and down the block, closing off the street. We found out that one of the kids was acting up and just wouldn't calm down, so they zip-tied him to a chair in the basement. When he wouldn't stop screaming, they put a zip tie around his neck to scare him into being quiet. They tightened it right away and ended up killing him. Story 2. My closet door flew open one night during a thunderstorm, directly across from my bed, and the leap/bolt I made from my bed was probably pretty impressive. I couldn't sleep in my room for about 2 weeks after that happened. The reason it even happened in the first place is because I had discovered a small compartment through my closet to a secret room next to mine. It was basically just an unfinished attic type space with only wood beams and fiberglass. Again, through a weird small entryway in my closet. I didn't close the latch properly, and that panel banged up against and pushed open my closet door during a massive thunderstorm. As a kid, I've always wanted this little secret passageway in my room. I think it'd be awesome. Story 3. I had a balcony in front of my room as a kid with a sliding fly screen door. It was a rural area, so I often just slept with the door to the balcony wide open. One night, I'm lying with my back towards the balcony door, and suddenly, the effing fly screen door slides open and I hear something come in. Me, absolutely terrified, didn't dare to move a single muscle, so I couldn't see who or what had come into my room at 2 a.m. And then I heard a familiar meow. It was just my cat. She's never been able to open that door, and then suddenly she managed to pull it off. Cats never cease to amaze me, man. They truly just kind of do whatever they want. They own the space. Story 4. My grandpa told me a story about how some strange woman in disheveled clothing knocked on his door in the middle of the night, speaking a strange language, while he was staying in some hotel in Taiwan. From what I remember, he told me it was as if she was floating. Sounds like you need to get the heck out from where you are. A floating woman in disheveled clothing? Yeah, I'm good. Story 5. In high school, one of our classes went to a funeral home. While listening to the guide talk about the cremation machine, this girl in the class turns to me and points at the machine. Then she says to me, "That's going to be you." She was mean for no reason. I never talked to her ever before or after that. A year later, she died in a house fire. Her heater caught on fire in the middle of the night. And then what was left of her was fully cremated in that same machine. Crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Story 6. Many years ago, pre-cell phone era, a friend of mine got a call from the police. "Lock your doors, hide, we're on the way over." Her angry ex had hired someone to break into her house, make it look like it was a burglary gone bad, and kill her. Through some bizarre coincidence with equally bizarre timing, someone arrested for another unrelated drug charge offered a bigger fish if they let him walk. The bigger fish was that his buddy had been hired to kill her. By the time they validated the story and identified the people, they were able to determine that the hired killer was likely already on the way to her house. In the few minutes between the phone call and the police arriving, he had started breaking into the house. A long sequence of perfectly timed, unlikely events was the only thing that stood between her and absolute certain death. That is just so lucky, man. Wow. That's like a movie scene. Story 7. I used to hang out in a field near some forest when I was younger. One time, it was about midnight, one of my friends had recently had some love triangle type trouble, and the other guy involved wanted to fight him quite bad. Somehow he found out where my friend liked to hang out, and rounded up about 10 of his friends to come find him, and I'm guessing to just beat the snot out of him. I, unfortunately, happened to be there too. We saw about 4 cars park up on the road near the field, and about 10 guys get out. I'm guessing they saw one of our phone lights because next thing we know, they were shining what I can only describe as an industrial flashlight towards us. All we heard was, "He's right effing there." So we ran into the forest at 12 at night in the pitch black dark. And on top of that, it started to pour with rain. So for an hour, we hid in bushes and crept around the forest floor, avoiding them as light from their torches shone around the trees. At times, they'd walk right past us but not be able to see us because we were face down in the bushes and mud. LOL. I was the victim of a manhunt, and it was terrifying. I got home at about 2 a.m. soaking and covered in mud. They never caught us though. All over a stupid love triangle I wasn't bloody involved in. That was the scariest thing that ever happened to me. That is terrifying. The last thing you want is to be caught in the woods where no one can see or find you. That's terrible. Story 8. I had some Final Destination shot happen with my ceiling fan once. This was circa 2010, 2011. I was playing World of Warcraft in my bedroom, just grinding some materials. I hear my fan start making a really weird noise, and for some reason, I had the urge to duck. At that moment, one of my fan blades came loose and shot straight into my dual monitors. Luckily, there was no damage, but I was watching my back for at least 2 weeks after that. I've had a similar story with that too. At a buddy's get-together, his fan broke down and hit some girl in the head. She sued and she got money. But now she's in prison. So, it sucks. Story 9. I live in Costa Rica, and about a year ago, 2 Danish tourist girls in their late teens got a tuk-tuk back to their hotel from a bar in town. It was about 8 p.m., so not too late. The tuk-tuk driver suddenly took a turn off the road and took these girls down a dark lane to a deserted piece of beach where there were a load of his buddies just waiting. They raped and beat the girls repeatedly until 4 in the morning when they left them for dead on the beach. One of them managed to get up and in her fright and shock ran naked into the jungle and got lost. They did not find her until midday the next day, and she was suffering from exhaustion and dehydration on top of her considerable injuries. The other one made it up into the main road and stumbled into a cafe where they called the police. What's worse is the police showed up and didn't take her seriously, saying that she was probably drunk and it was her own fault. The local population was up in arms and boycotted the tuk-tuks. There were demonstrations and eventually the police confiscated all the tuk-tuks and sent more police to the area. We now have a new police station, and there has been a crackdown on sexual violence in the area. As typical though, the gang that attacked these poor girls was never apprehended despite it being common knowledge in the town who it was. It's tough, when someone like that from a first world country goes to a third world country, you truly just can't. I know it sounds bad, but you can't just be whisking around and just having good faith in people. Like, obviously there's good people in these countries, but at the same time, you just never know. You gotta be careful and you gotta take precautions. Story 10. My cousin died of leukemia at 12 when I was a kid. We used to love playing around my grandfather's workbench in the basement when he would visit. It was always a central place for us to just tinker with whatever he had every evening after dinner instead of watching TV. The night after he died, my grandparents heard a commotion in the basement. They went down there the next morning and his workbench was in disarray. Maybe not so much horror story, but more spooky. Story 11. When I was a teenager, I went to drive to a friend's house when it was dark, and before I could exit our neighborhood, 2 cars pulled in from the main street, each taking a lane and stopped. They were intentionally blocking the exit. I had to come to a stop about 50 feet away, just trying to figure out what was going on. After a few seconds, they both accelerated in my direction. I threw that thing in reverse and did my best to back away, but I realized pretty quickly that 1, they would catch up to me, or 2, I was going to wreck my car and they would still catch up to me. So I went with option 1 and just stopped on my own. They drove up and boxed me in against the curve. Both cars each had 4 adult men in them. The driver of the car next to me angrily shouted at me, "Where's Caroline?" I was confused. I just said, "What?" With even more danger, he asked about Caroline again. This time I just said, "Who?" I legitimately had no idea who Caroline was. After that, he relaxed. He calmed his voice and said, "Oh, wrong person, sorry," and drove on. The other car followed him and also said an apology out their window as they drove by. I was shaken up for a minute, but, just drove on to my friend's house after that. It took me a few minutes to realize that there was someone else in my neighborhood who drove the same make, model, and even color car as mine. So that's probably why they were so sure of themselves that I was whoever they were looking for. Yeah, that sucks. You got caught in a crossfire, man. I mean, I think you played it off pretty well because you genuinely had no idea what they were talking about. Story 12. I went to high school with a girl who, accompanied by her boyfriend, killed another girl. Actually, it happened right up the street from where I live now. They put her body in a rolling suitcase and dumped her in the river. Despite draining the entire bay, her body was never found. I am horrified to realize that the suitcase will likely rise to the surface someday. Honestly, it probably won't rise to the surface at this point, but nonetheless, that is just sad. That concludes day 9. If you guys have your own spooky stories to share, please drop it in the comment down below. If you like these kinds of videos, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell notification icon to be alerted when new videos are dropping. With that being said, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.